Hi, and welcome to the Social Angle, a podcast that helps promo pros gain an edge in the social media realm. I'm Vinnie, and on this episode, I'm joined by Hirsch's Brittany Frase, Director of Sales and Marketing, and Amanda Delaney, Marketing Manager, to discuss a recent major rebrand at the top 40 promo supplier. Brittany and Amanda, welcome to the show and happy Election Day.
Happy Election Day. Thank you for
Thanks
having
for having
us.
us. Jinx.
Yeah. Did you guys get out and vote today?
I early voted.
All right.
Me and everybody else with an AARP card. Yeah.
There you
Brittany
go.
turned 31 recently. She's struggling with it, if you can't tell.
Oh, are you? Oh, come on. That's nothing. I'm 50, but yes, I do get up very early too, but maybe that's just the normal process of growing old. But anyway, I voted. Brittany, you voted. Amanda, you're up next.
I'm up next. I would love to vote. I'm still getting my ducks in a row moving to Houston, and we've been a little busy with the rebrand since I got here. So I know it's some things I actually care about, but doing my part to create some social change in the area. In the meantime, I'll be there for the next one.
Awesome. So we have a great topic today. We're going to talk about Hirsch gift turning into Hirsch and talk about the rebrand, everything that went into it. But before we get started, I want you guys just to give us a brief introduction. I'm going to start with you first, Brittany.
Brief introduction. I am Brittany Frase, at least Monday through Friday from 8 to 5:30 or so. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for Hirsch Gift. I've been in the industry for 12-ish years now. They actually started me in the industry. I answered a Craigslist ad to be the receptionist for what at the time was Hirsch Gift. So I've worn a few different hats since then. Did a little bit of time on the distributor side. I say enough to make me dangerous. To come back to the supplier side, worked for one of the top 5-ish suppliers for, again, a little bit of time. And then Hirsch brought me back last year as the national sales manager to replace the national sales manager that had been here for 7 years. So
awesome. Well, welcome. 12 years in the industry. That's great. I'm 15, and we got a lot. Sounds like we got a lot of experience on this podcast. What about you, Amanda?
Amanda Delaney. I am the marketing manager here at Hirsch since March. I think I just hit 9 months actually. So I've been in the industry for, oh my gosh, a little over 20 years. In April, I guess it'll be 21. I started when I was 12 and a half. Yeah, distributor side, supplier side, everything in between. And
this industry has a real problem with child labor.
It really
We have election day issues, so sorry, man.
There you go.
We're making that up for somebody. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. Now I'm here, like I said, supplier side, distributor side, a little bit of everything in between. And Brittany kidnapped me and moved me to Houston earlier this year for this role. So it was a very intentional move, and I said, let's go. And I don't know who would turn down an opportunity to come work for Peter Hirsch in the first place, but it's been great so far. So here I am.
Yeah, you guys you're in Houston. I gotta, give you kudos to your team, the Astros, beating our Philadelphia Phillies. I'm a Yankees fan, but I was rooting for the Phillies because, I have to hate the Astros as a Yankees fan. But you guys, after the 2017 controversy about cheating, the scandal, you guys won one, and now nobody can say you guys, didn't at least win one the fair way. I'm happy for you guys. Even though as a Yankees fan, I'm look, what are you gonna do? You guys were awesome this year. Great pitching, great defense, great hitting.
The Phillies put up a good fight, I have to say. And obviously I'm an Astros fan, but if I was going to say, here are some teams I'd also root for, the Phillies could be one of those up until, the last series run. But they put up a good fight, better than I was expecting. I called them scrappy pretty often.
Yeah.
Astros certainly made some mistakes in some of those games, but obviously the better team pulled out. It's fine. And if all of you listening, not Astros fans, need me to bring a trash can to any of your sporting events, I'm happy to help your team too. I'll get to bring on a trash can. It'll be a great time.
I like it. You're bringing the sass.
I can help everybody win.
There you go.
Making America great again, one step at a time, one trash can at a time.
I love it. Yeah, and the Phillies, they're the only team that beat the Astros in the postseason, so you got to give them credit for that. The Yankees got swept, so I'm like, I'm over that. But yes, the Phillies are scrappy, and I think they're going to be a team that are going to be kind of, a good team for a long time. As long as they've got, the core of players that they have, they're going to be good. So they may be back, maybe a rematch next year.
I'm sure the city of Philadelphia would agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So anyway,
exactly how they feel about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they They don't get over things too easily. They hold a grudge. So
Philadelphia don't have that in common. It's fine. At least when it comes to sports, very much so.
All right, so we're talking about the rebrand at Hirsch, which the news broke, I think, a week or two ago. There was a lot of buzz on social media that I saw you guys creating. Amanda, I know that you were very instrumental in that. Also, Josh, I saw some posts that you guys were doing that were generating buzz itself. So we're going to talk about all of that. But first, I want to touch upon why Hirsch decided it needed a rebrand, and when was that decision made?
So I'll take the lead on that question as Amanda throws me that side eye. So when I was at the time, key accounts and marketing manager in a company that was very much growing substantially, but not as big as it is today, I didn't care for the name Gift because at the time I didn't super think that it defined what we were doing at that point. We had a ton of retail brands, JBL being the rock star of it at the time, that it just seemed a little antiquated for what we were doing. We were still selling some of the metal products, which I affectionately call clue murder weapons, that we were still engraving. So some of that was still in our catalog. We were still showcasing crystals. So there was a lot more, I'd say, traditional gift component to what we were doing. But I wanted the name changed at that point. And most of the people up the ladder told me that I was nuts and that there was no way we were changing the name and, different budget constraints. And here's what our Vegas booth looks like. And, so on and so forth. But I did think that it was important when I came back as well, that this was still something that I thought that could be the future of Hirsch, given a different role that I had, and then moving into what would eventually be my role now as the director of sales and marketing. I really wanted this to happen, but it's so much easier said than done. And it can't just be me that agrees that it needs to occur. So I would say there was one catalyst that really propelled how we were able to get the conversation really going in a way that said, by this date, this will occur. And that's when we had our Vegas graphics for our booth. We've, as most do, a large booth with very large graphics. We had them missing. There's debate back and forth on how that actually happened, but this would have been for the 2020 Vegas show, the last show before everything happened in Vegas. So when those graphics went missing in whatever way that they went missing, they were never found. So when I came on board in February of 21, it was a discussion of if we were doing the Vegas booth for the next year, what were we going to replace those graphics with? The last graphics lasted us, I think, roughly 5 years or so. So what graphics are we going to produce that will be the next few years? And these are thousands upon thousands of dollars. It's not, a small expense. And we were talking a few hundred bucks here. So this was kind of my way to remind the Hirsches, Peter and Paul, my president and vice president, how I felt about the Gift name, and to start kind of doing research on how everyone else felt about that name as well. So it kind of started with, hey, if we're doing graphics for the next 5 years, what is that going to look like? And if I put Hirsch Gift on there, I'm stuck with Hirsch Gift for the next 5 years. And I don't take kindly to being stuck in one spot like that if it's not something that I don't care about. So I think that's originally where it started. I floated it past Paul, who again is our vice president, but the son of Peter. He will eventually, Peter's never retiring, but if he were to ever retire, then Paul would take over. So Paul really agreed with me, which was very helpful, that he said, yeah, I can see that being our future. But obviously it's not just about Vegas booth graphics. It's every single person's tablecloth. It's at my 25 reps across the country. It's changing the website and everything that's associated with that. I mean, there's so many things that come into play. Sure. So the next step, sorry, this is the longest answer to this question, but there wasn't really like a definitive moment. There was so much with it. So it started off as booth graphics that kind of gave me my in. The next step was that I actually reached out. I'm extremely biased. I grew up in this business. We mentioned 12 years. I started when I was 12-ish. So I have my own, especially after the distributor side, especially after working for a different supplier. I'm like, I know that this is what needs to happen, but I'm not the only opinion here. Not only do I have to get my internal team on board, but also, is this not the right decision? Am I crazy to drop the name Gift? Who from an outside perspective can I bring in and not only that we respected their opinion, but also would be as much Switzerland as possible, because I'm not Switzerland, and certainly the guys with their name on the building aren't Switzerland. Certainly a marketing manager, Amanda was not here at the time, but by the time we brought her on, not Switzerland either. So I reached out to Bill Petrie and Kelsey Cunningham, who was with Bill at the time, to ask both of them, hey, you guys literally have your business built around marketing for this industry. Certainly they've got the connections necessary to give me the truth is what I really was looking for.
Sure.
Give me the truth on which suppliers have done this successfully before. What were their missteps? What are the timelines here that we need to do this? And actually the target launch date at the time was January of 2023.
Okay.
So that was, we were going to, at Expo / ASI Orlando, we were going to make that the launch date. Does that launch date make sense? Would it make more sense to launch in Q4? Some of those questions just started forming. And so it was asking them, hey, do we think this is a good idea? If this is a good idea, people over at Brain Debate, what are the best ways that we can tell the Hirsches that this is a great idea? Because, you know, this is something that we'll have to convince them of too, that this is something that would be ultimately a good thing for their brand. I'm not trying to change your company. Your company's been very, very successful, even, you know, for a very long time, thanks to your leadership. So from a marketing perspective, does this make sense? So bringing them on board obviously was very helpful in kind of determining those first steps. And then after that, formalizing the vision that I had. So questions so far on my long-winded answer?
The first question that comes to mind is, are you responsible for the theft of those graphics?
Well, I can't say anything like that without my lawyer present, first and foremost. So you can re-ask me that question with him present.
No, I mean, I jest, but it's
I need my rights written as well, or read to me as well. Miranda rights are very important to me.
But I find it interesting I find it interesting that set into motion, or that was the catalyst of discussing the rebrand for Hirsch. And so it basically came down to the name. So you wanted to drop the name or the word gift from Hirsch Gift.
And we also had a terrible tagline I was not a fan of, but yes.
Well, I mean,
we're not bringing it back. Some things need to stay in the past, you guys. I got here and I was like,
yeah, it was largely dropped by that point. But yeah, I needed to officially be gone forever.
So the name was sort of the catalyst, as I mentioned, going into this rebrand. So now that you've decided that you guys are going to rebrand as Hirsch, what else went into the rebrand? Like what other things that you threw into the pot and to come up with this rebrand?
So much. So
friends, we call Bill. Like, can you read us back what you instructed us to do?
Right. So I would say how much went into it. What was the work that was involved with it? So it is thinking in motion.
Not the work that went into it, but like what other changes were integrated into this rebrand? Like, for instance, did you do anything with the website? You know, what else was part of this? Wasn't just the name and the logo.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So that is, again, part of what we leaned on Brand Debate to tell us of how many things am I not thinking of with my name on them, but also it was us generating lists here. So part of those things were our tablecloths and signage for all the reps across the country. I think I mentioned that already. The literal signs on the wall of this building were important. Some of the changes to our HR documents. There are obviously letterheads, and there are, you know, when we sign on new employees, all of that was under Hirsch Gift. That needed to change to Hirsch and the new logos. Our social media, Amanda can touch a bit about just how much that reach is. Of course, there's our Hirsch social accounts, but then at this point are things like our LinkedIn. Something that Halo actually did a terrific job of was circulating out their new LinkedIn banners. You know, obviously your LinkedIns are managed by your particular people, so you can't force anybody to do that. And I don't know, maybe Halo does, and if so, one of them should drop me how we can legally. But but yes, it was one of those. You know, should we be creating these banners, and then even down to at what point do we need to create those? At what point do those get launched? Do we share that with the team? We need to tell our internal team before we tell the external team. At what point do that happen? It was very timeline oriented. Also with the website, at what point does that drop? There's always going to be issues when you turn over a website URL. So those were things that we needed to take into consideration. It was actually pushed back a week, which can go into, you know, I'm sure you have questions about things we ran into down the line. But yeah, I mean, every single thing with our name on it needed to be changed. Now what's running into, of course, is 2023, letting our accounts know that things have changed, that, you know, and nothing to be alarmed about. We're moving from Gift, but we're still the same company that you've known and loved. It's just going to have no Gift at the end anymore. And of course, to us, there were some major changes, but as far as, you know, mostly customers witnessed, there weren't weren't as many changes. Luckily, a lot of the reaction has been, we called you Hirsch anyways, of course. You know, it was kind of duh as the reaction. I did see, sorry, my lawyer Javier has commented that's why we have the Fifth Amendment, and I would just like that comment stated for the record. Thanks, Javier.
Yeah, Javi's, you know, I didn't know he also moonlighted as you know, as a lawyer, but you know, in addition to doing security over at Gillette Stadium, he's and a promotional product supplier. He's also a lawyer. I love that.
He also has a young child, so he doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
So we're in the young parents club, and that's something that we, you know, obviously have time for. We're not sleeping anyway. So thanks.
I'm there too. I got a 5-year-old. But I also have a teenager, so she's harder to deal with now than the 5-year-old. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, you talk about changing a name. You know, it's like you think about how simple a change of a name is, but then you look deeper beneath the surface and you're like, oh my God, it's a lot more difficult than a lot of people think. And Amanda, I'm going to ask you this question about social media, because I have seen companies in this industry, outside of this industry, rebrand. They got a new logo, they changed their name, but their social media wasn't updated. So there's actually a disconnect between the actual brand, the website, and you know, their marketing collateral and their social media. And that's a terrible experience, especially for somebody who doesn't really know the brand. If they go to your social media and your logo doesn't match your website, there's going to be like, is this the same company? So I know it's a little bit more difficult now. Amanda, I'm going to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about your approach to social media and how you guys sort of engineer not only matching the branding on your social media, but also generating buzz for the rebrand? You guys did a great job, and that's how I, you know, noticed that there was something big coming through your social media. I had no idea what was going on, and you guys really did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all of that. Vinnie, I had no idea what I was doing. No, I did to an extent, right? And that's one thing that I love about this company is, you know, we see Kaizen all the time, continuous teamwork and improvement. And Brittany will tell you a million times, this whole thing, it took a village. And so me moving to Houston, first of all, being in sales in the promotional products industry for as long as I was, and Brittany saying, we want you for marketing. The first day she picked me up at the hotel for work, she's like, all right, here's your budget. We'll go over that a little bit later. And then, by the way, we've officially decided to rebrand. We're going to need your help for that. And I was like, you know, and in the meantime, and already I'm like, I moved my life here. So personally, the rebrand was very personal to me from the beginning, like from literally day one. And I was a little worried about coming in. And so I don't have social media experience. I don't, you know, but what I had been doing through the pandemic and whatnot was a lot of freelancing and a lot of social media management. So I spent a couple of years educating myself and just really nerding out over analytics. And I never thought that I would care so much about algorithms in my life, but here we are. And that all played into, you know, obviously probably what Brittany saw that I didn't before I came on board. A lot of work goes into social media management, and a lot of work goes into, you know, kind of creating that buzz. Like you said, I had to make space for that buzz. And so I was kind of winging it to an extent. I knew it worked. I knew that I was creative. I knew, you know, about what times to post, and I knew what to look for. But I really had to do a deep dive, first of all, from the social media management that was happening previously. I had to go through and cut, that sounds horrible. Sorry if anybody's been deleted from our social media recently. But I had to downsize our number of followers, and I had to, and that takes a long time. And just looking at our competition and, you know, seeing kind of what their ratios are, because those affect the algorithms, and making sure that I'm staying up to date with that. And if we are going to tease something, what's the right amount of time to do that before, you know? And then also moving forward, this is something that hasn't ended yet, because we need this rebrand. Well, we want the buzz to keep going until ASI Orlando and Expo, because that's when we get to announce it with the new panels and all that jazz too. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but a lot of it was just making room, I think, for our reach to get out there. Vinnie, as you know, it's not so much about the lights, it's about the reach and the insights. And so I just really had to start educating myself, I guess, on kind of those algorithms, and again, paying attention to what other people were doing. And once I started seeing a pattern of what was working, cloning those patterns. Following new people, a lot of, I do more scrolling on social media, I think, since I've been at Hirsch for Hirsch than I ever have on my own social media. But yeah, just kind of creating that room and then watching for patterns, I guess. I don't know. A lot of it was just kind of, I'd say a guided trial and error, right? But that's also scary for me because I'm coming here. In the meantime, we just became a top 40 supplier for the first time. That's huge. That's massive. Right. And then I just kind of came strumming in with, I mean, going back to my interview too, when they flew me out here, they said, if we were to rebrand, what would your thoughts be? And I was on the same page that they had already been on. I'm like, I don't think you need the gift. I don't. Right. Pandemic changed things. I've said it a million times. The pandemic was it. I just stopped myself so I don't say this in a completely wrong way because it was horrible for a lot of people. But I think there's a lot of us in the industry that can agree. It elevated a lot of us in the industry too. And I felt like that timing, going back to the timing, this was the perfect timing. Like everything's changed so much. If we're going to do it, like, let's go. I don't know if that really answers your question. There's a lot.
No, that's great that, the preparation, getting the social platforms ready in terms of, doing a rebrand. But I want to talk about, some of the buzz that you were able to generate with some of the content that you guys created. For instance, you guys were kind of hinting that something big was coming. So I saw it all over your social channels. Can you tell us a little bit about these ideas and how you put them into action?
Yeah, I knew that we had to have some teasers, right? And our art director, Lewis, played a major role in the design of so much of it. And he had designed this teaser. And again, I knew that we needed a teaser. I had been, like I said, kind of making space and kind of putting things out there. A lot of the marketing materials that I create for our customers and for our sales reps, I've been leaving gift off and just using Hirsch. So I'd been for months kind of sneaking it in here and there, playing with the colors a little bit. So it stood out a little bit here and there. And whether anybody noticed or not, but I felt super sneaky every time I did it. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if they're going to catch on.
I know.
So that all played into it. So I knew we had to do a teaser of some sort, right? Generate curiosity. That's what we do in this industry best. And so Lewis came up with this graphic of this H that was out there and it was kind of this remix and it looked kind of wonky. And Paul and Peter weren't really sure what to do with it. And I'm like, that's perfect. That's our brand. That's our voice. That is perfect. Like, what the heck does this mean? We don't know. Stay tuned. And people did. And the influencer campaign obviously played a big part in it. We went through and selected, Brittany, Josh, and I went through and selected, well, I think we had about 35 people we consider to be very influential in the industry with a reach. The most
And sorry, Amanda, but just even to walk that back, even the selection of who was going to be the people to help us get it out there. So that was something too, that first of all, we went to Brandivate, our first of all hired consultants of, hey, who should we be reaching out to? Not just like, we obviously have our own personal list, but who makes sense to reach out to? Also, should suppliers be included? Are we asking them to overstep? Because, Charity Gibson, a huge fan of Hirsch for a long time, obviously huge on social media. Do we include her? Because is that a conflict to if she has to go to Peerless and say, hey, I'm really, prepping for Hirsch, but not necessarily for Peerless. So that was something that was kind of a almost moral question for us. Like, should suppliers be included? If we include her, should we include the the charities and the Meg Herbers that have this amazing reach and obviously reach some great distributors, a lot of the same ones as us, and we do try to kind of help out our other suppliers as well where it makes sense. But again, morally, is this something that we should be bringing them into, or is this kind of overstepping that perspective? I think that social media is so interesting in that way because there are lines to be drawn there. These are people's Facebooks that it's not just industry. I know we have a ton of people that are industry influencers. That are people that have a lot of that industry following, but also their high school friends are on there too. So there's only so many people comfortable with sharing on certain platforms. Sure. So that also goes into effect. And then just to kind of piggyback on what Amanda was saying, the as far as the reach, so Amanda was telling me all this, here's why it's important, here's the algorithm, and filling me with that information. But also she was very honest. I'm like, we need more posts out of Peter. We need more posts out of you, Brittany. I was pretty quiet on Facebook when it goes to the when it comes to the work part of it, right? Again, I'm going to sound so old right now, but I was on Facebook back when you had to have a college account. So, you know, these are my friends from forever ago that are also still on there. So it's not just industry people, but sure, I've got industry friends and colleagues and people that are on there. So it was that too, where Amanda's like, we need more posts out of you. It can't just be me and Josh blowing up social feeds all the time. So I think that, but also being strategic about that. I don't post a lot. So I try when I'm posting to make it relatively meaningful or for it to make sense for the company. And having a healthy mix of that so that they're not super drowning in my stuff. Mostly it's still pictures of my kids and videos, but every once in a while something for work that makes sense and is kind of that intentional. So I think that intentional is probably the buzzword that Amanda's probably sick of hearing from me is, you know, what is our intention behind what we're doing with social media, with even individual posts? And a lot of that was, you know, are we getting the reach that we need for the rebrand? And also, are we going to annoy people in all of this? Because I don't want to be the person that says, I am so, and maybe there's some out there anyways, but I'm so sick of seeing Hirsch everywhere. Obviously, in one perspective, we want that to be the case, but again, we want it to be intentional. We want those posts to make sense. And there was some posts that, you know, Amanda had to try out to see if they were going to be successful or not before diving in with the rebrand. We knew it was coming for a long time, but not everybody else did. So it was also staying quiet. So she mentions the part where she posted a lot. Didn't mention the post, Amanda, and she can elaborate on that, of course, where she stayed quieter on social media because we wanted to have the reach when we announced the teaser. So that was too that was crucial to the Hirsch social postings. So
it was very intentional.
Real quick, I'm sorry. I just posting a comment from Dana McMillan Geiger. She said, "Thanks, Britt. There was no Facebook when I was in college." Dana, there was barely internet when I was in college. So yeah, I felt that one there. Sorry to interrupt you.
Hi, Dana.
Thank you for your help. Yeah. No, yeah, to Britt's point, intentional. I'm very, Bill Petrie, what is Facebook? I'm very intentional about everything, right? And that's just one thing that I was able to do, I think really well, was execute that from coming in, knowing that at the end of the year, we were going to have this and knowing that there's going to be a lot of behind the scenes work to do. So I wasn't going to buzz around all day on social media one day and not the next. And it was, just the figuring out like what posts were working. When I saw that people were really engaged with the Peters, Peter and Paul, and you know, the culture, which is one reason I came here. And one thing I said in my interview too is, you guys are humble, but I really love you to be just a little less humble because there's so much greatness in this company, and I want to tell that story. Sure. Especially as we rebrand. Like I want to start telling this story, and then it does give me goosebumps actually, because then I want to tell that story, and I want the industry to follow along as like we're, doing all of this. And I just want to elevate that. And so they got a little bit more comfortable with that, but you start noticing that the insights are a lot better. The reach is better. People care about that. We talk about that all the time too, right? Like you can post product after product all day, every day. Yes, it's important. We have great product. It's what we all sell, but it's the people, it's the culture. It's, times have changed. Social media for promo is definitely different than it was before. And so that really, I think, helped kind of open up our reach a little bit and gave us more exposure.
I agree 100%. I've been preaching that on this show for a long time. Look, business is business, and you need to sell, but also, and this goes across all industries, if you're posting your culture, that's gonna sell for any business. And the Hirsches, these are they invented this story, right? They're the ones who created Hirsch. And I talk about it all the time at my business. We have to showcase more of who's behind the scenes, what goes on behind the scenes. And if you add that into your strategy, you're going to see content that's going to do a lot better than just posting product content, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to see that unless they absolutely need it. So most people are going to just kind of, glaze over that. But to me, I feel like if you're posting content that has your CEO, your owner, a little bit more about their story, it's going to do well. I can't stress that enough.
And I think that like something too, and this is kind of getting off of the tangent of the rebrand, but something that was a strategy for us before the rebrand that continued to be live through the rebrand. Peter was on his first TikTok this year. Peter's also 70 plus years, years old. So we told him, hey, get on this TikTok. Because why? Because it's fun to work here. I've worked here multiple times, and I can say that the common denominator is that it's fun to work here. So that's something that wasn't super present in our social, not because we didn't want to, but it was A, finding the time, and then B, having somebody that could really dedicate to it. So that was something that admittedly, when Amanda came on board, I said, we do need to showcase more of these stories. It's something that we've been focused on. And that's one of the things I challenged her to do, is to post more about this team. So there are a lot more posts about our account managers and the people behind the scenes that make orders happen for some of our distributors. Something that is a cornerstone of this company, and something that Peter, man, it had to have been 10 years ago at this point. I remember him bringing it to a sales meeting and saying, our new thing is Kaizen, which is funny because it's like a word no one understands, but also him saying a Japanese word in a South African accent, like I just couldn't get over how ridiculous it sounded coming out of his mouth. So what started as us kind of making fun of it, oh, Peter wants us to Kaizen, really became this like buzzword that is so ingrained in the Hirsch culture. Like, I'm surprised there's not a big sign on the door that says Kaizen when you walk in. It was something we didn't even mention really, very rarely in social media. Now it's something that every time Amanda posts something about what's going on at Hirsch, we just did this company lunch, we did this or that, she's hashtagging Kaizen, and it's something that has followed us and became a crucial part of that rebrand. And we can talk about stumbling blocks later, but when we went through those stumbling blocks, it was very important of what is this company about? And this company ultimately is about Kaizen because of what Peter has instilled, but also what all of us here really take near and dear to our hearts, is that continuous improvement and teamwork, which, by the way, is not what Kaizen translates to. It allegedly translates to continuous improvement, but Peter added the teamwork. So again, it's really a made up thing at this point. But again, very much our culture, and something that when Amanda came to work here was like, this is a big deal. You guys don't talk about it enough. You know, how does half this industry not know what Hirsch is about? And I would like to think, I mean, it's probably from my very narrow perspective of working here, that it seems like we have more of a presence where that's concerned now, is that people hopefully are seeing that we are more of a company than just, the people that make awesome JBL speakers, which is also true.
We have a few more comments from what I can only imagine are, Gen X and even some boomers in here. Eric Johnson says, I did not see any posts on my MySpace account. I think,
he kicked me out of his top 8, if I remember correctly. So
the top 8. I love it. Eric, I think I still have a MySpace account somewhere. I don't think I've logged into it in 20 plus years. And of course, Ellie, Boomers on TikTok is where it's at. I know. I look, and TikTok is. They say it's for the younger people, but Ellie's kicking some butt on TikTok. She loves it, and she's doing a great job there.
There's an interesting thing too, real quick, Vinnie. I love Ellie's. Ellie, we love you. TikToks, and that's one platform that I have not been present on. I was not a ticker talker, and so coming here, I've kind of pushed it off as long as I have, and just really invested into the platforms that are working well with our audience. And thank God it's worked, because I'm terrified of TikTok. And so here I am. It's interesting, the different platforms, but.
Yeah, and I will say, just another quick segue shout out. Eric Johnson was actually my first mentor in this business, set up by Promo Kitchen. So let's do a few shout outs while I have a microphone. So Promo Kitchen set me up with my first mentor, which is Eric Johnson. I owe a ton to that guy. So thanks for joking. I wasn't in his MySpace top 8, even though I was his mentee. So if that makes you feel better, Amanda. But yeah, one of my many mentors. I have a lot in this industry and always want more, but Eric was the first one.
You were number 9. It looks like it. So
yeah, sorry, Amanda. At least you made the list. So
yeah, you made the list. So anyway, moving on. I know there's a lot that we can unpack here, and Brittany, you brought up, us falling off a little bit, from the topic. I don't think so. I think when we talk about social media, and you guys are trying new things and integrating more culture, I think that could also be part of the rebrand. You're talking about trying new and different things, adding more fun content, so to speak. I think that's a good thing. Like, look, if you're a business and the only thing that you change is your social media strategy, you're sort of rebranding the company on social media. So if you're integrating a new strategy into your social media, as well as doing other things for the rebrand, I think that all kind of plays in perfectly. So let me ask you about the logo itself. And I talked to Brittany Gotzi a few months back, Gold Bond, when they did their rebrand. And I was shocked at how much work went into the new logo that they made. I mean, look, I'm not a graphic designer. I don't do any of that stuff. But to me, when she told me how much work went into it, I was shocked. How much work went into the new logo?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're really giving me and Amanda like heart palpitations just hearing it, because it's so stressful. It is so stressful. Are we going to drop the green? How important is it to our logo? Is the logo going to change this way? Does it look too much like Gold Bond's logo or HPG's logo? What's the reception going to be? Is it too boring? Is it not exciting enough? Uppercase or lowercase? If we had to literally an hour where it was like, we have to shut this down. This can't be a thing anymore. That was actually something I left brand debate out of the part of, because we already had too many talking heads in it. That if I also added in the consultant, not to say obviously once it was picked, it was, hey, we're pretty sure this is what this is now. What do you think this reaction is going to be? But when we were looking at 10 different logos down to 3, and everybody has an opinion and everyone's opinion is different. And ultimately all of them matter. So that's kind of the tough part with a logo change. It matters what, me and Amanda think of it as the marketing team heads. It matters what Lewis, our graphic designer, who, if there was a third person on this call in this company, it would be him. He's created our logo. He created the green. He created the original Hirsch gift. So this logo is near and dear to him, because he's been turning it into things for years, to e-blast, to flyers, to all of it. He has been the mind behind it. So not only was he tied to the logo that we had, but it was, this is very much your logo too, Lewis. This is what you've been stringent on. You created our guidelines. You know what our clear space is. You have your PMS colors memorized, and so do we. But again, for him to have it, down to the CMYK colors and all of it, it's been his as well as this company has grown. So he started as the only artist. Now he's the art director. And then the guys with their name on the building, it's their name. So we knew that it was going to be Hirsch. So it matters to them and their company what that's going to look like and be, and what they're going to see for the foreseeable future.
So you stayed internal. You didn't go to an agency to do the new logo.
Not at all. So we are blessed with an art director that, again, not only has the background of, at this point, even though he's not customer facing, he knows who our top accounts are. He knows who, and why that matters. He understands what we need for trade shows. He's created all the Vegas and all the ASI show booths and created that artwork. So he's created everything for the multi-line reps that we have that have asked about, from, again, flyers, every piece of collateral in this company that has had Hirsch's name on it, he's touched. Awesome. So we were very fortunate to obviously have somebody that is so that speaks our language, so to speak. And trust me and Amanda sometimes can speak a whole different language, that he and turns it into this illustrator, just gorgeousness. So we went to him. We said, here's what we're thinking. Obviously, we gave him this is the amount of time that you have to create these different logos. We rejected more logos than you can. I mean, probably to bring them up would be kind of funny to look at now. Again, at the time, it was anxiety inducing.
I believe it.
Once we got down to the last one, I did send it back out to Bill and Kelsey and said, hey, I think this is where we're going. What are your thoughts on this? What does this look like to you? What do you think the reception is going to be? And then, of course, they gave their thoughts. And had those thoughts been negative, we probably would have made some changes. But Bill and Kelsey both at the time were like, we love it. This is awesome. We're like, oh, okay, because great. Because at this point, it'd be very difficult to change. And we have everybody on board. And it was hard to kind of to step out of it. Me being here for, again, a decade plus, was I had to completely step out of the situation and just be as stoic as possible and say, Peter and Paul, this is your name. I need you to rank these logos 1 to 5 on which ones you like and tell me why, which ones you don't like and tell me why. And we went through that, what, Amanda, 3-4 times? 4 times before we actually got down to these are the logos we are now down to. And even then made some changes after the fact to, there's the logos, but then we added a navy color. What should that accent color be? How does it take away from the green? Does it take away from the green? I mean, building brand guidelines is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
We'll put it that way.
Well, I have a new.
And there were heated conversations too, like very heated conversations. And here I am. I mean, I'm very passionate and opinionated as well. And Brittany will tell me all the time, that's why I was hired. But then again, you're coming to these 2 people that I respect so much. Lewis, who's been here for 10 years, who, as Brittany just told you, has created her brands and changed them. Brittany, 12 years, who, Brittany is very invested into it. And then I come in with, a new set of eyes, new experience. And I'm like, well, I think this and this and this. And I mean, in the conference room I'm in right now, very heated conversations about logos. And I can't tell you how many times Brittany and I were like, this is the one, this is the one. And then looking back on it, every time Lewis would like take all of our feedback and somehow turn it into like 3 new designs, but that were still a part of what they were before. I mean, I have no idea how he's done what he did. We'd be like, oh, I can't believe that we ever thought that logo was the one. This is going to be the one. But
I certainly have a new appreciation for how much work goes into logos. Bill Petrie says Lewis did an amazing job on creating a clean, crisp logo. Josh says I'm a bit biased, but the new logo rocks. And if you want to check out the new logo, just go to the website. What is the website?
HirschPromo.com.
Yeah, check it out.
And on social media at Hirsch
Yeah, of course. So a couple more questions for you guys. And Brittany, you mentioned this a little bit earlier about stumbling blocks. We're going to talk about, what did you encounter? I mean, obviously going through getting the right logo, I wouldn't consider those stumbling blocks so much as, it's like, you got to trim it down to what the best one is. Maybe it took a lot more time. But can you talk a little bit about some of the stumbling blocks that you may have experienced?
So you're correct. The stumbling blocks weren't necessarily that this is the process. I'd agree that that's the process. The stumbling block is when I say this needs to be done and I get told, oh yeah, we don't have time to do that. And I mean, from my sales perspective, I have this dual role of sales and marketing. So it's very tough to say, why am I sitting here filming a TikTok with the president of my company when we have sales to go make and we have orders to go write and I have customers that are trying to reach me. So there's definitely a delicate balance when you are talking to the owners of a company that have that in mind. I do have a belief, I say to Amanda all the time, marketing is the top of the sales funnel. So if you don't have the marketing piece behind it, the sales, it very much goes hand in hand. But I can see how many suppliers, especially smaller suppliers, probably run into, why do we have the time to do this right now and focus? Part of the stumbling blocks is really sticking to those deadlines in a way that the other sales thing didn't then take more importance. So, hey, this has to be done by X date, or I'm not going to have booth panels for Vegas and a new 10 by 10 for wherever. Like all of those things would not have happened without somebody else outside of this company. It's one thing when it's mine because it's like, well, of course you want that, Brittany. It's most important to you because you're the marketing director. It's another thing for me to say, no, Brand Evade says if this isn't done by this date, then this last thing that we're trying to achieve isn't going to happen. Sure. Also, when going through those conversations, as you can imagine, when you are having a heated discussion about whether the logo should be uppercase or lowercase, there's a tendency to want to pull the plug on it. So there were a few times where I thought Peter and Paul were both like, why are we even changing this at all? This is going to be such a huge disaster. We didn't even think about how people are going to be affected. And, you start almost getting into your head about all the negative things that can happen instead of focusing on the mission of why you're doing it to begin with. And remember, convincing these guys that it needed to happen it had to occur to begin with, much less when we were going through that. And also, why are we sitting here debating uppercase versus lowercase when there are other things to get done? And Peter's got checks to sign, mine included. So usually I'll kick them out to do that. But that too. So making it a priority was a lot more difficult than you'd probably expect. I think most people listening in or most people that weren't deep in it said, well, of course you made rebranding a priority. It's everything to you. And to a certain extent it is, but also there's still business operations to be done, and there's still national accounts to visit, and there's still different events going on and shows and everything else happening in between. There were people that wanted to have opinions on it. Josh I'm sure I'm speaking for him, but of course he had opinions on the logo, but he wasn't involved in those 4 conversations because we couldn't have another person tell us uppercase versus lowercase. Of course, by the end of it, we wanted him on board, but that a lot of people here, and because they're so passionate and they care so deeply, which is a great thing about our team, but then also comes into conflict when we reach things like that. Budget was a stumbling block as well, as we get asked to be pulled in more directions. Travel's getting more expensive. The reps have needs in their various territories. It's a budget thing. It's very expensive to rebrand from all sorts of different perspectives, even down to those 25 tablecloths I have to send out to the reps. New booths, obviously the booth panels, which we discussed, were stolen. Maybe by me, maybe not. That's for a lawyer to determine. That's
business cards that had to be redone because we're not used to that new website because was it going to be Hirsch-Promo or HirschPromo.com? Going back to Vinnie, I think your question about the social media handles, that was one thing that I was very adamant on. To blame my OCD on that, but I was like, I'm not going to have @Hirsch Gift and then Hirsch be the name. And so making sure every so often that Hirsch Promo was still available because that was going to be our website, but not changing it over and then dealing with what happens when, it was that kind of stuff was a lot too. And so making room for all of that to make the time to make the rebrand happen was insane. We weren't going to put out we weren't gonna like do these teasers on social media. First of all, I had to make something, I feel like, which all I did was tell everybody's story from what was already here when I got here. But we had to make this something that people wanted to care about. Sure. We had to make this something that people wanted to be curious about. Like, why? There's a million suppliers in the industry, so why? You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't remember where I was going with that. But
that's I mean, all of it plays into it. Social media, you know, your day to day, you know, in addition to now this rebrand, which I think leads me to my next question, which I think is a common question I ask about rebrands. And what was how much time did you allot, and how much time did it actually take? And I think that's important because people don't expect that the stumbling blocks, the scope creep, the things that they don't really think about kind of creeps in, and it extends the actual time frame. Whereas some people are like,
still doing it.
Hey, this is going to take 3 months, when in actuality it should take a year. So I know, Brittany, you mentioned that the idea first came to you in 2020, but when did you actually sit down and start doing the rebrand? And how much time did you think it was going to take, and how much time now do you think it's going to take till it's fully done?
I thought by the time that we were putting everything in motion, like, you know, let's say I wanted it planned. If we were going to do this, it needed to be so planned out until, you know, we knew that there were things that we were going to leave out. But what is this plan going to look like? And I thought that would take about 3 months to develop. Mm-hmm. That process was probably closer to 6. Even in the matter of, you know, something that we didn't discuss, but very important, is that Peter had to reach out to a lawyer and say, what else is Hirsch in the industry or in any other industry? Because you have to step back from just yours. Who are we going to? Is HirschPromo.com available? Is Hirsch.com available? It's not, by the way, a machinery company owns it. But going into that,
right,
getting the lawyer to get back to you, which they will say does on their own time, except Javi, my fantastic lawyer, who, by the way, wants me to remind you all that I'm exercising my amendment rights not to speak on and to plead the fifth here on the logos. But I digress. So all of that comes into play, and he says, hey, I'm waiting for the lawyer to get back, and I'm just, you know, a sitting duck until he can even say, can we change the name, or is it taken by something that we're going to run into copyright issues down the line? So from a legal perspective alone, now I have Peter on board, but now he's going to make sure that his legal, you know, it's his business. So when it comes down to the legal stuff, I have to leave that to him to make sure that his T's are crossed and his I's are dotted. So that process I thought would take about 3 months. That process ended up taking about 6. I would say that if somebody is looking at how long is this going to take, if another supplier asked me, I would say at least a year. I'm sure for larger suppliers, that's an even bigger, you know, feat. But I would say that a year is reasonable-ish. And again, like Amanda said, there are things we're still going through. There's still stuff on the building that needs to be changed, and we'll continue to run into it. You know, it certainly wasn't perfect. I would love to think that it was. There's some great lessons that we've learned along the way, but I would say probably a year makes sense. But if you had to ask me what, by the time I get this in place, what would be the end, I'd say 6 months turned into a year.
Yeah. I think that's more than reasonable for a company to say, hey, look, we want to rebrand and we want to do it in a year. You know, I think that it's just way too ambitious to think you could do something like this in 3 to 6 months. And Brittany, you bring up, you know, the legal aspect of it, then looking for website, you know, domains, if you're going to switch your domain, and then, you know, obviously from a social media perspective, being able to switch, you know, the user names that you have in social media, and then switching up your logos. And, you know, there could be a lot that goes into this that will take some time to figure out. It's not like, hey, you can just go ahead and do it on the day you decide that, hey, we're going to announce a name change. We're just going to flip a switch. No, you have to kind of research all that, see what goes into it. And a lot of people will wait till the last minute. It's like, oh shit, I can't do that. Like now it's like, now
it's step one, or it's everything that you did that's gone now. Again, it's getting the budget stuff worked out, and it's convincing, hey, we need an outside perspective. So I need to pay somebody to do that. Bill is not an unpaid gentleman, so
he was worth every penny.
Yeah, Brandon is not going to work for free, no matter how many brewmate things I tried to throw at him. It's not free, and it shouldn't be. It should not be free. And I think that's another thing in our business that's interesting to me is that service providers are so underrated on so many different avenues. Yourself ASI included, right, of what they can do. That's a tremendous asset to all of us, to suppliers and to distributors, and it's something that they shouldn't be taken for granted as much as it is.
And I will say to that too, speaking of ASI, our rep Hillary Dolphin has been instrumental for me. And I know Brittany doesn't see a lot of those conversations because I lead that. But as we talk about 2023 budgets, like, by the way, here's what we just ended 2022 with. But Hillary's been instrumental in like, this is what we're going to do. Like, this is where I think your brand awareness is going to be the most seen. This is how I think you're going to get the most traction, and keep it kind of, fresh until you get to ASI Orlando, and then, same transferring that over to PPAI. That leaning on your service providers and the partners that you have, because as Brittany said, it takes a village, but that's not just an internal village. And that's not just our customers who we're so blessed to have, that we're so thankful that we asked them to be a part of this. They wanted to be a part of that. And that's a testament to, Peter and Paul and Brittany and Josh and the team that has been doing what they've done before I got here. But yeah, really leaning on your service providers and saying, okay, what else am I thinking? Or, we didn't want to rebrand and then have that just drop. We weren't rebranding because we had nothing better to do. We were rebranding because this is the future of this company that we're all so passionate about and invested in. So there's a lot that rides on it.
I wish it was the only thing we had to do. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
as much as we had some discussions, it was a lot of fun to rebrand. So
yeah, if you could drop everything and then just spend 6 months on a rebrand, that would be awesome, right? But you still
other than the day we went live, that was a little stressful. Brittany and I were here very, very early, and we're both kind of staring. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make the change on social, and she's like, I'm going to send this email, and we're like, okay, you go and I'll go when it's. But other than that, it was a lot of fun.
And I didn't have a big wedding because I didn't want anybody invited. So my wedding was very small, just me and my husband and the person that married us. But I have been told that post a wedding, you have so much planning, you have so much everything that goes into it, that day after it happens, you're like, it's over. Is it over? Is it officially? Do we need to do anything? No, like it's weird, like emptiness. Right. That's how it felt after the day of the rebrand launched. I was like, okay, wait. We're done for real. Like, there's nothing else that's on the checklist. There's nothing else that needs to be done, because it was always such this obviously a tremendous part of our jobs and everything that we normally do anyways. But yeah, there was almost that what I would assume is the post wedding, like, oh, is this really over? Like, what else do we have to do? So yeah, I'd say that me and Amanda both, the whole team did. I think Lewis, same thing. He's like, are we sure we're done? And of course, making sure that we actually were, which, as we discussed, there's still a few things straggling.
Okay. Now what do I post on social media? I struggled with that too. And I'm like, oh, I didn't plan for this. I didn't plan for like the week after. I've got nothing. Like, I have no content, which is not true at all, but you feel like
it's strange, like you just, all that work, and then all of a sudden it's the next day and you're like, all right, is this it? And you're like, well, Bill,
did they think it was as cool as we thought it was? Like, did they have as much fun as we had?
Right.
Just like, were we drinking too much that night and we thought it was great, but everybody else thought it sucked? Like,
yeah, and there's a lot of work that goes into it that everyone on the outside doesn't see. So, when that weight is gone, it's like, but nobody realizes how much you were doing unless they've actually done a rebrand. Bill says, kidding aside, working with Brittany, Peter, Paul, Lewis, Amanda, and team at Hirsch was truly a fabulous experience. Long live Brewmate.
We paid him.
Bill, we're not paying you anymore, so I appreciate it, but it's done now.
So I have one final question, and I'll pose this to both of you. What was the most important lesson you learned during a rebrand? I'm going to start with you first, Amanda.
Ooh, I was afraid you were going to do that. So much, especially being kind of my first experience. I learned a lot about listening, and I learned a lot about being wrong. Oh. And I think that's something we all kind of go through with life. But I was the one who wanted the lowercase letters, and if we're being real, if we were going to do uppercase letters, the only way I was having it, as I've been here for 2 months at that time, was if there was a period at the end. For certain reasons, which all goes back into the messaging, but a lot about being wrong, a lot about putting myself out there, to move my life and take this position and have that be kind of the first undertaking. You want to make people proud. You want to prove that you were, worth it. And I often have to shut my mouth and listen to other people and realize that I'm probably not right. And that, fresh eyes aren't always the best eyes. You need the people who've been here for this long. You need the people who are, it really does take a village, and every single person who was involved in the rebrand, and then extending to our entire team who maybe wasn't necessarily a part of it, they're the ones that are going to continue to tell that story, right? So just a lot of lessons in being adaptable, which I pride myself on being anyways. But just a lot of, I don't think I've had to open my eyes to different opinions and things that matter so much as this did in the 20 years I've been in this industry. So
wow. Great answer. Brittany.
Probably two things. I do what you do best and outsource the rest. Don't ask me about social media algorithms. So if Amanda said we're doing a TikTok today, and Josh said you're doing a TikTok today, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm doing a TikTok today, and I'm doing it for the gram or whatever it is the kids say. So I would say trust your team. Trust the people that have it, and make sure, again, the delegation piece was huge, and then just letting it go. It's very easy as the person that ultimately director of sales and marketing. I've got my name behind what people do, but trusting the team to get it done. So it's that. The second piece that I learned is that all the research you're doing is never enough. So do more research. If there's somebody else that's going through a rebrand, my advice to them, take it for what it is again, get somebody outside of the company to help, get somebody to tell you, and then that's going to be honest with you about it. That's going to tell you, hey, great idea. Your distributors are going to hate that. Hey, good idea. X supplier did this last year. Because as much as you think you know, you don't. And it's impossible to know everything that goes on, even in this industry that is very close knit. It's still impossible to kind of have your brain wrapped around everything, and especially that competitive information. And there are people out there keeping up with that. ASI, again, PPAI, brain debate. We've mentioned him enough that we're going to turn it into a drinking game in a minute. But there are people that literally do this for a living. So trust those people as well. And again, just that research component that right. Some's never enough, but also, like you said, you've got to set limits on, okay, if we want this done, we've done enough about this. We have talked enough about this. We have had to learn on how to set those limits with, we cannot discuss anymore lowercase or uppercase. Make a decision now. And, those delegation things. So some things I thought that I was doing, but didn't realize how much they needed to be done for something as close to everyone's heart as the rebrand was and is.
Perfect. Great answers. Again, this is Amanda and this is Brittany. Anybody want to get a hold of you? Can you guys give your contact information? I know, Brittany, this might not be something you want to do, but you want to be internet anonymous. But if anybody wants to get a hold of you for business, how can they do that?
You can always shoot me an email, brittanyf@hirschpromo.com. So Brittany F for my last name. You can always, Amanda, I'm sure, is going to drop our 74 ways to get in touch with us via social media. You can also feel free to add me on Facebook if we have met before. If we haven't, I'm probably going to deny it. But if we have met before and the chances are high in this industry, I'm going to accept it and be prepared to see pictures of my kids. So, yeah, there you go.
Amanda?
And then I am Amanda Delaney at HirschPromo.com. Our social handles are all at HirschPromo. So you can find us there. Our website is HirschPromo.com. What else? I think I guess that covers it.
Yeah, that's great. But
you can find me personally at that Promo Life on Instagram, but everything I post really is just related to how it's going to help boost the Hirsch promo page. So
there you go.
Hirsch.
You can find me in crawfish season in April every Friday at a crawfish bar with a beer in my hand. If you really want to get in touch with me, a good way to do it.
we can keep talking. I mean, look, we can keep talking about drinking beers and having a good time here, but unfortunately, we're out of time. But you guys did a terrific job in your rebrand. We wrote an article on ASICentral.com. Any big brand that rebrands in this industry, we're covering it, and you guys did a great job. Social media did a great job promoting it, generating buzz. But again, this has been a great conversation. And everyone, check out the website. What is it? HirschPromo.com.
HirschPromo.com. And real quick, too, thank you to everybody who's been involved, our customers and our influencers, our awesome campaigns. We had a content educational series written about us. We had a song written for us. People just really put their own personalities into that, and it wouldn't have meant as much to us if you guys enjoyed that with us. So
awesome.
100%. Thank you to Amanda. Thank you to this whole team that is always surprising me. They're always tremendous, but especially through this rebrand project, it was a labor of love for sure. So thank you to that whole team that's helped. So.
Awesome.
And thank you, Vinnie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Vinnie, for having us.
You guys were great guests today. And again, Amanda and Brittany, I'm Vinny. We'll see you next time on The Social Angle.
Peace out.